Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Off the Dome Sports Podcast, your favorite sports podcast where two sports lovers sit and give their hot takes. Off the Dome. I am Redfish.
And I'm ReBo Hustle.
And today we will be covering everybody's favorite, the 2-0 New Orleans Saints. Before we get started here, like I said, I'm Redfish. That's ReBo. If you watched our content in the past, you've seen other people on this channel. Lionel Frankenstein usually joins us. But there used to be a second host of this show other than ReBo, and his name was Mustang. And although he can't be here with us today, he is with us in spirit and sent me the State of the Union address of the New Orleans Saints. So I will start our episode off by reading that. All offseason, day in and day out, all I hear regarding the Saints is, it'll be just like last year. We won't have an offense. Derek Carr is washed. He can't score the ball. However, Mustang never lost faith. I constantly found myself having to tell people to have faith and to be optimistic. Going into week one against the Panthers, Saints fans were confident in a win, but didn't realize they could win by such a large margin. Even after a sound win, instead of commending their own team, they would say, oh, it's just the Panthers. They're the worst team in the NFL. Who cares? To which Mustang would say, true, but putting up 40 points in the NFL is a daunting task regardless of who you're facing. Moving into week two, all I would hear was the Cowboys are going to whoop the Saints. Sportsbooks were giving the Saints plus 6.5, a touchdown. Nobody was believing in our New Orleans Saints. Yet, here we stand, 2-0, back-to-back 40-plus point games. Derek Carr absolutely spinning that thing. Alvin Kamara over 300 all-purpose yards and 7 total touchdowns. All I can say is I never gave up, never lost faith. They wrote them off, and we didn't write back.
Amen.
Amen, brother. That we could end the video right there. Thank you, Mustang, for pouring your heart and soul into the Notes app and sending that over my way. That was a beautiful address to a team who we have to apologize to. Before this season, man, we were saying some nasty things about our own team. Me personally, coach, hand up, that one's on me. Dennis Allen, I do apologize. I was calling for your head. I was saying I hope we start 1-4 in order for you to lose your job. Why was I praying for somebody to lose their job? I don't know. That's a very bad thing to do. However, I was still doing it. I no longer do it, and that's because I heard him say, sometimes you just got to whip that thing out and show them in the Cowboys locker room. If you got that kind of swagger and your team is believing in you that much, you have something. My stat of the day, last 3 times a team scored 90-plus points in the first 2 games of the season were 1971 when the Dallas Cowboys won the Super Bowl and 2009 when the New Orleans Saints won Super Bowl 44. The New Orleans Saints, as of right now, put up 91 points over 2 games between the Panthers and the Cowboys. This is the most fun we've had since Drew Brees was here. Being a Saints fan, it's only been 2 games. I know we started off 2-0 last year, but the 2-0 last year was a 1-point win against the Titans in week 1 and a sloppy second game where we thought we were losing until the last 3 minutes. This year, from the first play to the last, we were the best team on the field, and our boys let them know it. I think the thing that, for me, is proving to me the most valuable is that our players believe in the team. Last year, you would see times players would come into the press conferences after games, even after a win, and they would look like they just found out their dog died. And now, after games, Kamara is shining up there. Demario Davis is screaming in interviews he's not even a part of. Derek Carr is doing Michael Jackson dances in the end zone. I mean, this is the New Orleans Saints of old. And I'm not going to get ahead of myself and say, oh, we're going to win the Super Bowl. But through 2 weeks, we look like one of the better teams in the NFL. And we have to sit here and be honest with ourselves about who this New Orleans Saints team is. And it's a whole lot better than what we thought coming in.
Yeah, I mean, I was right there with you. Me and Lionel talked about what's the worst-case scenario, and we went through the schedule, and worst-case scenario was a 3-win team. And Dennis Allen might have been out of the head coaching spot by week 6 or something like that. And here we are, 2 weeks in, 2-0. I'm sitting here on the couch on Sunday morning by myself, kikiing, blowing up your phone because you weren't here, blowing up my friend's phone that lives in North Carolina because he texted me about the game. I was speechless throughout the entire game, just sitting there, cheesed up on the couch, doing absolutely nothing with my life other than checking fantasy football and watching the Saints beat the dog out of the Cowboys.
Oh.
It was like Christmas morning.
Dude, it really was. I mean, so church into 12. immediately after church, tell everybody bye, the what have yous. I turn on the phone and in the car. I mean, it's a minute and 20 seconds into the game, and I'm listening to it. And by the time I get to where I'm going, which was no more than 15 minutes away, we had scored 2 touchdowns. What?
And I might have sent you like 10 text messages in those 2 touchdowns.
It was 8. It was 8. It did show up on the Apple CarPlay screen. 8 messages from ReBo Hustle. But I mean, this offense, man, Clint Kubiak, we should build a statue right now. And even if, I mean, like at this point, he might get a head coaching job next season because of what he's doing to the Saints offense. We are a nationally recognized team. Every platform is talking about what is going on with the Saints.
What is the only team to trust in the NFC, and why is it the Saints?
And Stephen A. Smith, who, I mean, to be fair, he hates the Cowboys, and we just beat them, so maybe a little bit biased there, but Stephen A. Smith talking about the Saints. Greenberg talking about the Saints. Skip Bayless, who is a Cowboys fan, talking about the Saints. The Pat McAfee Show talking about the Saints. Like, this is... It's wild how quickly opinions can change in the NFL, but that's going to happen when you're scoring 40-plus points against other NFL teams, especially against the Cowboys, who have a very vaunted and talented defense with Mike Zimmer calling plays. Getting back to Clint Kubiak, last year we were bottom 3 in play action, and we were bottom 3 in pre-snap motion. So far this season, we are number 1 in both of those statistics. Last year we used play action, I believe, 14% of the time. This year, 52%. The fact that we can take that half second of a linebacker or defensive lineman having a little bit of a different strategy when going towards the ball, whether they stand up a little bit more, whether they take a jab step to the right or the left, whether they try to shoot the hole in a zone coverage, and Derek Carr can manipulate the defense and pass it downfield to Chris Olave, who's over the middle, pass it down the field to Rashid Shaheed, who scores touchdowns, 40-plus yards, it seems like every single game. Or, my favorite part is we're going back to the old-school Saints who utilize the line of scrimmage and screen passes to their advantage. It felt like every time Alvin Kamara touched the ball at the line or behind the line, he was either getting a first down or a touchdown, and there was nothing else the defense could do about it. It is such a fun team to watch because of the way they're playing offense, and it's such an unpredictable team to watch because you never know who's going to get the ball, when they're going to get the ball, and what they're going to do with it. But right now, it seems like every time the offense touches the ball's going in the end zone.
Yeah, the first 15 drives that Derek Carr was manning the ship, we scored. It was either a field goal or a touchdown, not including the last drive of the Panthers where we took a knee, and not including up until the interception against the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Which is remarkable. That's 15 drives that ended in points, which if you look back at last season, we might have had 15 straight drives that ended in punts or at least a field goal. We scored touchdowns, and that's the biggest thing this year is we're getting in the end zone. We're making the red zone opportunities count. I don't know how many times that we had to send Blake Groupie out there last year just to hit a chip shot, but I guarantee you I've got more fingers and toes than that stat.
Yeah, and the cool thing for me is we have a rookie punter. So, that's a position that's really underrated in the NFL. You can flip field position, you can pin people inside the 10, and you will stall drives by having a good punter. We don't know if he's good or not because he's only hit the field one time.
Yeah.
Like the fact that we have a punter who has played one snap all season through 2 games is remarkable. And it goes to this coaching staff for being able to step up. It goes to Derek Carr for taking all of the hate he's getting on social media and around the city. I mean, he was a zombie on a float last year during Mardi Gras. And, the resurgence of Alvin Kamara, Rashid Shaheed being the most electric player that we've seen in a very long time. But the number one key to what I've seen this offense do is the offensive line.
And I am shocked because the story of the preseason was, what are we going to do with the offensive line? Even if you expected the team to be bad, you also expect the offensive line to be worse.
Yeah. It was undoubtedly the biggest question mark on the team going into the season. 3 new starters on the offensive line. Your bookends at tackle, both new. Trevor Penning was a first-round pick 3 years ago, has not proven himself on the NFL field whatsoever, to the point where people were talking about we might just cut him and, cut the losses and get rid of him, and there's no point in even having him on the team, all that kind of stuff. So what do? Ramczyk gets hurt. Teron Armstead's no longer here.
Andrews Pete's gone.
James Hirsch retires. So we lose pieces on the offensive line. We draft Taliese Fuaga in the first round. We move Trevor Penning to fill Ramczyk's spot on the right side, and we bring in veteran Lucas Patrick. And you're thinking, man, this offensive line is the definition of mediocre at best. Because Eric McCoy, we know, very athletic, very good center, wears the captain patch, got paid, deserves it. Cesar Ruiz, very rough first year, however, has proven himself since then to be in the upper half of interior offensive linemen in the NFL. But to me, what is the most impressive is our tackles. The fact that a first-round tackle comes in day one, left tackle starter, has allowed 0 pressures, maybe 1 pressure, but has, like, to the eye test, has allowed 0 pressures and dominates in the run game. And Trevor Penning takes all the hate he got, all the improvements he needed, and has stepped up to at least be serviceable as a starting right tackle in the NFL is mind-blowing. I'm just so impressed with what that offensive line has done through training camp and preseason when everybody talked about they're not good enough, and Derek Carr already wasn't looking great. What's he going to do with a horrible offensive line? Well, we don't need to ask that question because our offensive line isn't horrible. They're dominating the line of scrimmage through the first 2 weeks, and I'm excited to see what this group can do together.
Yeah, and we've got a couple stats to back that up because you've got 2 rushers over 75 yards. Jamal Williams has 77 yards through 2 games, and Alvin Kamara has 198.
Jamal Williams has more rushing yards, I think, through 2 games than he did all of last season. I know he has the same amount of touchdowns, and he got that last touchdown on the last snap of the Saints season last year. So
he had 306 yards all the season last year, but we've got 15 more games to play.
He's a quarter of the way there.
Yeah, we've got 15 more games to play. Also, you've got 3 receivers that are over 92 yards. Shaheed has 169 yards. Kamara and Olave both at 92 yards.
Yeah, and, I think the craziest thing to me is Olave was probably the player people are most excited about coming into the season, and he's the one who I think has underperformed the most, but I don't think it's his fault. I think just the way this system is and the opportunities we're getting is Carr and Shaheed look like they're roommates at this point. Like, they are connecting on a different level, and there's no point in complaining about who's getting the ball and who's not when you're scoring 40-plus points. And you've seen that from Olave. Last year, Olave looked frustrated the entire season because he wasn't getting the ball, but I think that's because that's who he is. He's an alpha, and he knows he's one of the best players on the field at any given time, and I would too if I was a top 12 pick in the NFL draft. And yet now you see Shaheed running down the field with the ball in his hands about to score a touchdown, and Olave is doing a second line behind him. I think this team is playing for each other, and this offense is clicking at a level we haven't seen in a very long time down here in the Bayou, and I am so excited to keep on watching us.
Yeah, I mean, there's always buy-in from the 3 defensive veterans in Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, and Tyrann Mathieu, but it seems to have infected everyone this season. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sure starting the year off hot is going to infect the locker room, but we've got everybody smiling from ear to ear, a part of every game, even Chris Olave, who has every right to be upset that he's not getting the ball and he's the only real wide receiver in our room, because if we're being honest, Shaheed was a returner the past 2 years. But what I noticed a lot was the chunk plays. We're showing up in two tight end sets, and the only 2 routes are Olave with an over-the-top to bring the safeties off, and Shaheed underneath Olave maybe 5 yards, and we're hitting Shaheed underneath. And so Clint Kubiak understands how to take your number 1 receiver and use him as the pressure relief. And that's what I think continues to show up in Shaheed's big plays is Chris Olave is the guy that everybody's keying in on because of how great he was as a rookie and how great he was at potential last year and how great he was at Ohio State. And defenses know that. Defensive coordinators know that. And Clint Kubiak knows that if they know that, then we can make Shaheed get the ball here and use Olave as a decoy. And Olave does get the ball in the short yardage. We need 5 yards. It's a little too long to run. But who's the best route runner on the team? And that's Chris Olave, and he's shown it. A lot of his passes have been little 5-yard slants and then taking them for another 20. And you have to love that.
Yeah. I mean, and as much as we talk about the offense, you have to mention the defense as well. Marshawn Lattimore was out this week, and we know what he means to this team and how good of a player he is. Kool-Aid McKinstry, second-round pick, Reese's guy coming into the draft. Absolutely loved him. I kind of grew on him a little bit towards the end, but in the beginning, you can go back and watch our videos. I was out on Kool-Aid McKinstry. I thought, he was only getting the recognition because he played at a big-time school, but Mustang and ReBo Hustle, huge fans of Kool-Aid McKinstry coming in. They made me grow on one at the end. I think I finished him with cornerback 4 or something, even though I had him outside the top 5 to start. Now he's my cornerback 1 because he's on the Saints, and he filled in for Marshawn Lattimore. No, he wasn't perfect, but nobody's going to be when CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks are on the other side. And yet, we made the Cowboys look like a bottom-half offense when they were the best offense in football last season. That defense played their hearts out. Tyrann Mathieu got himself a pick. Will Harris seems to be one of the most underrated signings of the offseason. He not only does he play the ball well, but he is not afraid to put his shoulder into a guy. And he's played every snap from sideline to sideline, whistle to whistle, and played very, very hard for this team. Willie Gay Jr. seeming to be coming around into the defense. He had to miss a lot of camp, so you can't expect him to come in and be the day one perfect starter. Demario Davis is leading this unit like no other, and our defensive line is proving to be a lot better than we thought coming into the year. Carl Granderson, Cam Jordan, Chase Young off the edge. That is a 3-man rotation that offensive linemen have to have nightmares about, because Cam Jordan, although he's not what he was in the past, being able to rack up 13 to 15 sacks a year, he's going to stop the run, and he's still somebody you have to worry about because he is a technician and he can do it. Carl Granderson has been our best edge rusher the past 2 seasons, and I think he had 2 sacks in this past game. And then Chase Young coming in, we were worried about the neck injury. He's been healthy this season, and he's proving why he deserved to be a first-round pick, the number 2 pick right after our very own Joe Burrow in 2019. So I'm very excited about the talent on this defense and what they can do to continue to come together, because through 2 weeks, they have looked like one of the best units in football. I think they're the 8th ranked defense, and we have the number 1 ranked offense. 2 top 10 units. We haven't seen that in a very long time. I cannot believe that these are the words we're uttering on this podcast right now.
Yeah, I mean, back to the defense this past game, the 2 guys you mentioned in Kool-Aid and Will Harris, they were the shining points of the defense. I believe each of them had a breakup within the 5-yard line, which, I mean, a lot of people are going to say, well, CD still got his. Yeah, CD's going to get his. He's probably a 3rd best receiver in the league.
He's undoubtedly top 5. He was the number 2 receiver in fantasy football last season, and he got an absolute bag after holding out because the Cowboys were like, you know what? As much money as he wants, he's probably freaking worth it.
I completely agree that Carl Granderson has been able to get to the quarterback and finish his pass rush, but man, does it feel so good that Chase Young is in a Saints uniform, because even though he's not necessarily the one that initiates the sacks, every sack that we've had this season, Chase Young is right on top of the quarterback, either assisting the sack or he's going to touch the quarterback's helmet on his way around the tackle just to say that, hey, I got here too.
Yeah.
Also with Kalen Saunders missing a lot of time, Brzee and Nathan Shepard have looked amazing. Sure, we have not faced a super running team yet, but when you score a lot of points, you don't necessarily have to have a super run defense, and I do think that those guys can get it done, and we do have the linebackers to fill the gaps as well.
Yeah, and then the only guys we haven't really talked about, Paulson Adebo and Alontae Taylor. Alontae Taylor was the NFL sack leader after week 1, putting up 3 sacks from that nickel position. Something we were very skeptical about coming into last year with Alontae Taylor was, can he actually play that nickel slot cornerback? He projects more as either a deep safety or an outside corner. But, he's embraced the role, and he's made of a lot of improvements that we've seen through 2 games to be that guy. And then Paulson Adebo, no, I wouldn't say he's one of the best corners in the league, but this is the last year of his contract, and we're going to have to decide whether we pay him or not. And with the way he's playing, it's hard to deny that. So, as much as we talked up the offense in this episode, we have to talk about that defense holding up their end of the bargain as well. If both of these units keep playing the way they are, it is going to be a very tough division for the Falcons, Buccaneers, or Panthers to make a step in for the next few years.
Yeah, and looking forward, this Sunday we play the Eagles, who on Monday Night Football just lost to the Falcons in what seemed like the easiest drive of Kirk Cousins' career.
3 plays.
Just 3 chunk plays at the end of the game. I don't understand what the Eagles' defense was doing in those 3 plays, because they played pretty stoutly throughout the game. I guess the biggest question mark going into the game is A.J. Brown's health. He's kind of the heartbeat of their offense at this point. Sure, Saquon can run the ball and has proven that he can run the ball no matter who's playing, but A.J. Brown gets their passing game going. Yes, he's just one guy, but they did not look good last night without him. And I hate to say that we're just going to continue to rolling like through the entire NFL, but if the Eagles show up like they did what was last night for us, there's no reason that we shouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles' defense in the fourth quarter looked, prone to yards being moved on them. That 3-play drive where Falcons needed to score, and they did it. The Eagles' defense looked like they were either out of gas or took their foot off the gas pedal. Jalen Hurts, as much as I love him, I was a huge fan of him coming out of Oklahoma, and I've been a stand for him every year since. He's prone to turnovers. He's probably going to fumble the ball. He's going to throw some risky passes into coverage, and I don't think the Saints defense lets that go. The keys for that, contain the run. I think we have the pass rushers and we have the back end talent to cover the pass because I don't think A.J. Brown's going to be playing. I'm pretty sure they said last night on the broadcast he's out for at least 2 weeks. So it's Devonta Smith, it's Britton Covey, it's Jahan Dotson. They have Devonta Smith, but it's really nobody after that. So, I don't feel any sort of way about the pass. If we can contain the run, and that's both Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley, who seems like the best running back in the NFL through 2 weeks, if we can hold them under, 120 rushing yards as a team, so it's spelling a win for the Saints. We love to do score predictions to wrap up an episode, so I'll go ahead and drop that here. Like I said, I think, like you said, actually, it's hard to say the Saints are going to keep rolling through the NFL, but with the way we've played over 2 weeks, I'm not going to doubt my team unless they give me a reason to do so. So I'm going to say the Saints not going to score 40 points again, but we'll score some points. I think we're looking at a Saints 31, Eagles 20 matchup.
This kills me every time we do this. I have a number in my head, and you always go one below or one above.
You're welcome.
Saints 32, Eagles 17.
All right, there we go. 32-17 and 31-20. We're going to wait and see what that over-under is. Probably going to land somewhere in the high 40s. Hammer the over. Saints offense is not going to be slowed down by this Eagles defense, who has yet to prove that they can contain a team for 4 quarters. Packers, I think, put up like 29 points. Falcons this past week ended up beating them in prime time. So, really looking forward to what the Saints can do, not only this week against the Eagles, but throughout the rest of the season. The schedule went from looking like a 7-10 team to all of a sudden double-digit wins with just 2 weeks into the season, and we'll keep you updated through everything Saints. If you enjoy this content, make sure to like, comment, subscribe here on YouTube. Let us know what else you want to see. If you love Louisiana sports, make sure to check out The Know. That's KNEAUX, the only way to spell it, at Be in the Know on X, and follow us on X while you're there, _Dome Pod. Thank you for watching the Off the Dome Sports Podcast. I am Redfish.
And I'm ReBo Hustle.
And we will see you next time.